A baby girl is born in Los Angeles. The world will know her face forever.
Her mother cannot take care of her. Her father is never even named on paper.
She grows up in foster homes, one family after another.
At 16, she gets married just so she has somewhere safe to live.
Her name was Norma Jeane. The world would later call her Marilyn Monroe.
Los Angeles, California, June 1st, 1926. A baby girl is born. Her name is Norma Jeane Mortensen. Nobody in that hospital room could imagine what her face would one day mean to the world. Her mother, Gladys, works as a film cutter in a movie studio. Gladys loves the movies. She even names her daughter after a famous actress of the time. But Norma Jeane's father is missing from her life completely. His name isn't even written clearly on her birth certificate. For her whole life, Norma Jeane will wonder who he really was. When Norma Jeane is only 7 years old, something difficult happens to her mother. Gladys is diagnosed with a serious mental illness. She is sent to live in a hospital. Suddenly, Norma Jeane has no one to raise her. She moves between foster homes and an orphanage for most of her childhood. Some homes are kind, some are not. She never really feels settled anywhere. As an adult, she will say her childhood felt lonely and unstable. Years later, people who knew her say she rarely talked about it without sadness in her voice. One foster family even has rules about how much affection a child is allowed to receive. Norma Jeane later says she felt like an outsider in almost every home she lived in. For 2 years, she lives in the Los Angeles Orphans Home Society. It's a place built for children with nowhere else to go. She is one of hundreds. Eventually, a family friend named Grace takes her in and treats her with real warmth. For a while, Norma Jeane finally has something close to a stable home. Grace often took her to the movies, and Norma Jeane became fascinated by the actresses on screen. Years later, Marilyn would say this was where she first imagined a different kind of life for herself. But even this stability doesn't last. Life keeps moving her from place to place. By the time she's a teenager, Norma Jeane has lived in nearly a dozen different homes. When Norma Jeane is 16, her foster family has to move away. She doesn't want to go back to an orphanage, so she makes a decision. She marries a young man named James Doherty. It isn't really a love story. It's mostly about safety and stability. A few years later, World War II changes everything in America. James joins the military, and Norma Jeane takes a job at a factory that makes equipment for the war. One day, a photographer visits her factory to take pictures for the war effort. He notices her immediately. There is something different about her in front of a camera. That single moment changes the direction of her entire life. Norma Jeane starts modeling. She is a natural. Cameras seem to love her. Within a couple of years, her photographs appear in dozens of magazines across the country. She dyes her brown hair blonde, a small change that will eventually become part of her entire image. Her marriage to James doesn't survive the changes happening in her life. They divorce, and Norma Jeane focuses completely on this new path in front of her. In 1946, a film studio called 20th Century Fox notices her modeling work. They offer her a contract, but first, they want her to change her name. She becomes Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn from an actress she admired, Monroe from her grandmother's last name, a new name for a young woman building a brand new identity. But fame doesn't come immediately. Her first contract with the studio doesn't even get renewed. For a while, nobody is sure what to do with her. She takes small parts in forgettable films. She waits, she studies acting, she keeps trying. Then, in 1950, 2 important films change her path: The Asphalt Jungle and All About Eve. In the Asphalt Jungle, she plays a small role, but critics and directors take notice immediately. All About Eve is one of the most respected films of that entire year. Being part of it puts Marilyn in front of serious filmmakers for the first time. Slowly, the small parts start turning into bigger ones. People start to notice her, not just her looks, but her talent for comedy and timing. In 1953, everything explodes at once. She stars in Niagara, then Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, then How to Marry a Millionaire. All three films come out the same year. Marilyn Monroe is suddenly one of the biggest stars in the world. Audiences love her, but many critics only see one thing: a beautiful, funny blonde. They call it the dumb blonde image. Marilyn knows it's far more complicated than that. In real life, Marilyn reads constantly and keeps a large personal library at home. She studies acting seriously and pushes directors for roles with more emotional depth. But Hollywood studios prefer to keep her in the same kind of role over and over. It's profitable for them, even if it frustrates her as an artist. In 1954, she marries baseball legend Joe DiMaggio. It's a huge celebrity moment. Newspapers across the country cover the wedding in massive detail. DiMaggio is intensely private. Marilyn's career puts her constantly in public view. That difference becomes a real source of tension between them almost immediately. The marriage struggles, and it ends within the same year. Even after the divorce, the two stay surprisingly close for the rest of her life. Marilyn wants more than fame. She wants to be taken seriously as an actress, so she does something bold. She moves to New York and studies at the famous Actor Studio. She even starts her own film production company. This is rare for any actress in the 1950s. She is trying to control her own career in an industry that mostly wants to control her. Through her own company, she negotiates a new contract that gives her more creative say. She also wins something almost unheard of for an actress at the time: approval over her own directors and projects. People in Hollywood are often surprised by this side of her. Underneath the glamorous image, there is a sharp businesswoman fighting for control of her own work. At this time, most actors are bound tightly to their studios with very little say over their own careers. Studios choose their roles, their publicity, even details of their personal lives. By starting her own company, Marilyn challenges this entire system directly. Other actors are watching closely. Some begin trying similar things themselves. Later, she marries the playwright Arthur Miller, one of the most respected writers in America. For a while, it seems like Marilyn is building the stable life she never had as a child. Miller writes her a film role specifically, hoping to show the world her real depth as an actress. But the pressure of fame, combined with personal struggles, slowly puts a strain on their marriage too. She continues acting in films like The 7-Year Itch and Some Like It Hot. Audiences still adore her, but behind the scenes, her life is becoming harder. She struggles with insomnia, with anxiety, and with prescribed medication that she relies on more and more. Friends and coworkers begin to notice she seems exhausted and overwhelmed much of the time. Her marriage to Arthur Miller ends in 1961. By now, Marilyn Monroe is one of the most famous women alive, and also one of the loneliest. On August 5, 1962, Marilyn Monroe is found dead in her home in Los Angeles. She is only 36 years old. The official cause is a drug overdose involving sleeping medication, but almost immediately, people began asking questions. Was it an accident? Could it have been something else? Even decades later, her death remains one of the most talked about mysteries in Hollywood history. Historians and biographers still debate exactly what happened that night. Some point to her struggles with sleep, anxiety, and dependence on medication in her final years. Others point to the immense pressure of fame, failed relationships, and a film career that had become unpredictable. Conspiracy theories about her death have circulated for over 60 years now. Most historians find no solid evidence to support them, but the theories persist anyway. When the news breaks, reactions pour in from around the entire world. Newspapers in dozens of countries put her face on the front page within hours. Fans gather outside her home. Many people who never met her describe feeling genuine grief. It becomes clear just how deeply her image had reached into people's lives everywhere. What almost everyone agrees on is simpler than any conspiracy theory. Marilyn Monroe spent her final years carrying enormous pressure and very little real support around her. Think back to where her story started. A baby girl with no father and a mother who couldn't cope. That same girl became one of the most recognized faces in the entire world. More than 60 years after her death, people still study her films, her interviews, and her life. Her face is still instantly recognizable almost everywhere on Earth. Generations of later performers point to her as an influence, both as an actress and as an icon. Her image has been painted, photographed, and reimagined by artists again and again since her death. But the woman behind the image, Norma Jeane, often gets lost in all of that attention. Friends who knew her personally describe someone funny, intelligent, and far more thoughtful than her public image suggested. I'm John. Thank you for learning English with me today. See you in the next story.